Ukraine is no longer confined to fighting along the front line in occupied regions such as Luhansk and Donetsk. It is waging a parallel covert campaign across the border and deep inside Russia, where Ukrainian drones and missiles are now a frequent presence above western, central, and even eastern territories, striking military facilities and critical infrastructure. As these raids multiply, it becomes far more difficult for President Vladimir Putin to reassure his citizens that all is well. The carefully manufactured sense of safety he promotes is steadily disintegrating, and growing numbers of Russians are confronting the war's reality. This is happening nationwide, but it is especially pronounced in the Bryansk region in western Russia, wedged between Ukraine to the south and Belarus to the north. Home to more than 1.1 million people and covering 13,458 square miles, Bryansk's proximity to Ukraine has made it a prime target for Kyiv's forces. Under mounting pressure, local authorities are finding it increasingly hard to persuade residents that there is nothing to fear. Just days ago, on the night of October 20th, the latest Ukrainian operation hit Bryansk, and the gulf between Moscow's account and local reporting is revealing. In the capital, Russia's Ministry of Defense issued a terse statement. Only 2 Ukrainian drones, it claimed, crossed from Ukraine's Chernihiv region into Bryansk and were quickly shot down by air defenses, with no injuries, no deaths, and no damage. If taken at face value, the incident would be trivial, hardly worth coverage. That is precisely the impression the Kremlin wants to leave. Yet local outlets in Bryansk describe something far more chaotic and alarming from Russia's point of view. In the town of Klintsy, near the borders of both Belarus and Ukraine, and home to roughly 60,000 people, residents endured a night of sirens, repeated air raid alerts, and the relentless sound of anti-aircraft guns and mobile machine gun teams firing skyward to down Ukrainian drones. Footage shared by locals on the Astra Telegram channel corroborates parts of this, including a repeating on-screen air raid warning on a resident's television. Local reports also describe multiple drone impacts, damage to buildings, and at least one injured civilian, a teenage boy. A Klintsy-focused Telegram channel, We Listen to Klintsy, recounted the events in inflammatory language, blaming Ukrainian Nazis and stating that a boy born in 2010 was treated by EMTs at the scene, while windows were blown out in 2 apartment blocks and 3 civilian cars were damaged by shrapnel. Even the regional governor, Alexander Bogomaz, could not entirely hide what happened, condemning vile attacks on civilians and promising a morning damage assessment. These narratives could scarcely diverge more. Moscow insists almost nothing occurred. Regional outlets and the governor himself speak of vile attacks, damaged vehicles and buildings, and a wounded teenager. Anyone following the war recognizes this pattern. Whenever Ukraine executes successful strikes on Russian territory, the Kremlin's propaganda apparatus tries to downplay them, often claiming minimal or no damage to military sites, refineries, ports, or factories, despite abundant photographic and video evidence to the contrary. It is the standard playbook: conceal, distort, and mask the facts to sustain the illusion that Putin remains fully in control, that the special military operation is on track, and that Russia's homeland retains its inviolable strength. Most importantly, this strategy nurtures a sense of personal safety. It reassures communities that the war will not touch them, so even skeptics can feel protected enough to carry on with life, confident that no enemy drone or bomb will intrude on their hometown. Regional governors and lower-level officials are typically expected to echo Moscow's script. Everything is fine, everyone is safe, and a grand victory is just ahead. The tactic could be lifted straight from Orwell's 1984. But this is not fiction, and Ukrainian operations are dismantling that carefully crafted mirage. As the Bryansk case shows, even officials and media outlets that normally mirror the Kremlin's calm tone are starting to break ranks and publish grittier, more candid accounts. The reason is simple. Regions like Bryansk can no longer pretend. The strikes are too frequent and too visible. Officials know they would look ridiculous to their constituents if they tried to conceal obvious facts. Earlier on October 20th, for instance, another attack reportedly left a Russian serviceman, Ivan Slabchenko, with multiple wounds, according to Astra's sources, apparently the result of an FPV drone strike in the Susmetsky district. Local authorities rarely acknowledge military casualties, but people across Bryansk heard what happened. The war's consequences are becoming tangible in their daily lives. There have been numerous recent incidents. One drone strike hit an agricultural site in Trubchevesk. No people were harmed, but livestock and chickens were killed. Such targets are atypical for Ukraine, which prioritizes command nodes, headquarters, airfields, and economic infrastructure, refineries, fuel depots, power facilities, integral to Russia's war machine. The Trubchevesk case may have been accidental or linked to unknown factors, but the broader pattern remains. Most attacks align with Ukraine's strategic targeting doctrine. In late September, reports detailed a drone and missile strike on the Electro-Dettol plant in Karacháyev, which makes components critical to Russia's military industry, including electrical connectors used in aircraft antennas and other hardware. Ukraine's general staff publicly took responsibility, describing a coordinated attack by missile forces and artillery with a reported flight range of over 240 kilometers. Footage soon surfaced showing thick black smoke, explosions, and widespread damage. Days later, a heavier wave of strikes hit 3 energy sector sites across Bryansk, the primary thermal power plant in Klintsy, an electrical substation, and a pipeline pumping station. On the night of October 6th, at least 2 missiles struck Klintsy's main combined heat and power facility, severing its gas feed and leaving over half the city without heat. An A-10 steel horse-line dispatch station belonging to Transneft Druzhba was hit again after a previous September 22nd attack, and the Natopovichi substation strike triggered power outages across 2 districts for nearly an hour. 3 major targets in a single night, tens of thousands lost heat. Residents watched missiles streak overhead as fires lit the sky. Stories like these are proliferating nationwide. With so many people witnessing attacks firsthand and many posting videos online despite legal risks, it is no longer credible for officials to insist that everything is normal. Russia is under sustained attack, and Bryansk appears to be among the hardest hit regions, partly due to its location and the dense concentration of high-value energy infrastructure that Ukraine has been methodically striking. The region's forests and wetlands also afford concealment for commando raids and covert actions. Beyond the incidents already noted, a more recent drone and cruise missile strike on Bryansk city's power plant and nearby transformers reportedly cut electricity to over 1 million residents for several days. Soon afterward, a barrage of precision-guided US-made rockets hit a critical node on the Druzhba pipeline near Unecha. Ukraine has also established teams behind enemy lines to sabotage infrastructure from within, catching Russian forces off guard. On October 19th, Kyiv Post reported that partisans from the Atesh movement used incendiaries to destroy a communications tower in the Zhukov border district. Open-source analysts later noted nearby support buildings engulfed by the subsequent fires, leaving Russian border troops without real-time surveillance and radio links across nearly 100 miles of frontier. Governor Bogomaz again denounced Ukrainian terrorists, vowing retribution and restoration of order. In late September, Ukrainian special operations released rare footage of a Russian Mi-8 helicopter destroyed by an FPV drone, which open-source researchers geolocated to Bryansk's Klimovo district, barely 12 miles from Ukraine's border. Even in 2024, Bryansk had already ranked high on Kyiv's target list. In October that year, Ukraine announced a drone strike on a massive ammunition depot near Karacháyev, where Russia was said to be stockpiling North Korean shells, missiles, and glide bombs, some reportedly left in the open. Ukraine's general staff wrote that units from the unmanned systems forces and other defense components struck the 67th arsenal of Russia's main missile and artillery directorate, causing explosions and road closures and imposing serious logistical strain on Russia's military. Since then, the tempo has only increased. Governor Bogomaz recently claimed the number of strikes has tripled, accompanied by incendiary rhetoric labeling Ukrainians as fascists. Hyperbole aside, his words reveal a basic truth. Like many officials across Russia, he can no longer sustain the fiction that the homeland is secure. He is compelled to admit the attacks are happening, continuing, and likely to intensify as long as the war endures. The more officials talk this way, the more fear and frustration will spread among ordinary Russians, and that is a strategic effect Ukraine seeks. By relentlessly targeting high-value assets and puncturing the Kremlin's propaganda bubble, Kyiv is bringing the war home to Russia's populace, exposing the truth and, perhaps, seeding discontent that will grow harder for the Kremlin to contain. For deeper dives into rising domestic resentment, especially among long marginalized indigenous communities, and for a comprehensive play-by-play of Russia's failures from the invasion's outset to the present, check out our recommended videos, and don't forget to subscribe to stay current on key developments from Ukraine's front lines and beyond. From day one, Putin's obsession with the Donbass shaped his decisions. Today, Ukraine's expanding deep strike campaign is reshaping Russia's sense of its own safety.